Hi, my name is Christy Jaranos. My daughter's in 5th grade. I was wondering from the experience in this room, what it's like for our children to go to high school so far away. Do they have a community? Are all their friends in Concord? And how does that work with them not just fitting in from a small school, but...
I'd love to hear from a parent who has a kid in Concord. Is there a parent who has a kid who goes to Teresa? Right? Come on down.
Now, Tina, come on, she's in tonight. I have a question. You just started.
Right.
I have to come down. Thanks for pointing that out.
Sorry.
And it has been great. He has fit in well. He loves it. He's actually more engaged in school. And as for logistics, for those of you, I know it's scary, because it's scary for me too. I would have picked the wrong decision. If I had a choice, I would have picked a small high school, and it would have been the wrong thing for my son. So thank God I didn't have a choice. He was forced into it, because it was great for him. He has all these classes that are so exciting to him. His lowest grade is a 90. He comes home and does his homework without being told now. He's excited about school. And never mind the athletes. You know, he has a great athletic program. Colleges come in, they've been talking to him as a freshman. So he's really engaged in learning this year. It has been fabulous for him.
Excellent. So just in terms of, does he see his friends from Deerfield occasionally? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Like someone had asked about logistics, like how do I get him? Because I work down towards Mass. Deerfield kids. Julie's son brings my son home every day. They still stick together. You still see them. They still work together. Her son's a senior, mine's a freshman. He's winged him under. So I don't have to worry. And they all seem to work out like that.
Does that answer the question?
We have several other parents, I think, that would like to add.
Anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Tina's got a few.
Tina, St. Peter. I have 2 kids in high school right now in Concord. I have one still here at DCS. My girls have done really well in Concord. They are thriving. I was nervous about a big school. When they were little, I said I went to a small town because I wanted them to grow up in a small town, go to a small school. Like Teresa said, they've done so much better than I could have expected. I'm glad I didn't have choice now that they're there. I'm glad that they were forced into a bigger school because they have more opportunities. They have more clubs, more. I have one child who's not athletic. She does not want to play sports. The other one loves sports. There's a lot for my older daughter to do in Concord because there are more clubs for her to do, more for her to get into. She's volunteering with Better Buddies program with younger kids in Concord, so she's able to do that. I don't know if other towns have the same kind of thing, but she's doing well. There's the athletic program for my other daughter who does like that. Academically, they're doing better than I could have expected. They haven't had any trouble keeping up with the kids from Concord. My older daughter kind of struggled a little bit her 8th grade year. Her grades have improved since she's been in Concord. I just can't say enough how well they're doing.
Excellent.
So I think we should put our efforts into making that better for Deerfield families maybe. Maybe a late bus would make it easier for families here if money could be allotted for that. Transportation seems to be a big thing for the families here. So maybe that would be something to do, but I think it's good.
Thanks.
Just, go ahead, Julie. Well, I was going to say, 2 weeks ago, at our last meeting, we had the principal, or the vice principal from Concord come and deliver the report that we ask them for every year that shows quantitatively how Deerfield kids are doing in the general population of Concord schools. So that is actually very good data. And we're continuing to work with them to find it a little bit better. But it's a very interesting look where you can actually see numbers comparing Deerfield kids against that general population. So
Right, and I do want to make an apology about that meeting because we do record our meetings, and our technical The mics failed during that meeting, so if you go to look at the Concord presentation, you're not going to be able to hear it. But if anybody is interested in that report, it is public information. We are happy to share it with anybody. So.
My name is Julie O'Brien. I wear many hats. I work at the school. I drive a school bus in town. I have 3 boys. 2 are in high school at Concord. One's a senior, one's a sophomore. Very different learners. They're both doing well. And I have one son who's in 8th grade here. What I really like about Concord, even when we were looking at other options for schools a few years ago, was for my older son, he's really good at math and science. I mean, since kindergarten, he's wanted to be an aerospace engineer. And Concord had the breadth of classes to have, where a student who's interested in different things can try them out and do well. He's taking, I don't know that I would have done this, but he's taking 3 AP classes as a senior, and they have a program called Running Start where you get college credit and for your AP class. So you can either take the AP exam at the end and then maybe test out of credits for college, or you get college credit right then and there. So I just signed for AP Calc, I think it is, or I don't know. And so he's going to get college credit now as a senior that is going to be acceptable at Embry-Riddle in Florida if that's where he gets to go, which is where he wants to go. And so, I mean, but then on the other hand, there's the arts things that he has the opportunity to do that we wouldn't have the opportunity to do if we tried to have a high school here on our own. Like, he got to take a jewelry and metalworking class, which is kind of a fluff class, but last winter when the wiring between the plow blade and the four-wheeler kind of fried out, guess what? He knew how to solder. So, I mean, but those are things that we might not be able to add as like an added bonus if we were trying to do it on our own here. And if we, so they're all doing well. And yeah, transportations can get a little hairy, but they do stick together and they're always helping each other out. And I guess, and oh, the other thing too is, you know, for the student, you have to keep your eye on maybe academically a little more than the other. There's reports that come home every week through their Power School, which is similar to MMS here, but some classes have Google Classrooms and send home weekly. A weekly report is generated from the school or from the teachers that have Google Classroom that, hey, this is what's going on with your student. I've had teachers write me letters, send me emails, call because, hey, they're doing great in Spanish, and man, I wish all the other kids would do this. And you know what I mean? So as far as get it lost in the shuffle, I don't think it happens. I guess it could, but if your student gets involved and tries, and you're there to help support them, there's no way they're going to get lost in the shuffle. And personally, I think it's a great stepping stone because Deerfield is such a small community. I have no concerns about my senior going off to college next year after having had the opportunity to experience a broader, more diverse community in a larger community at Concord than going from Deerfield to a small school out to the big old open world. So we've been happy so far, but I guess that's it for now.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
One thing that I will add, just so you guys know some of the other things that we're up to, there's been conversation around, you know, we could build our own, and Deerfield as a school, our numbers have been very steady or growing for years. Overall, New Hampshire's student population is shrinking. We are actually doing a demographic study right now so that we can really gauge where things are going to go in this community and speak with a little bit more definition in terms of what we can expect going forward. Everybody has probably seen the number of houses that are getting built. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be filled with families, but
It's a good chance.
it's a good chance. So, just any anecdote.
Yeah. I'm Nicole Curtis, and I have 2 boys that go to Concord right now, and I have a daughter who's in 6th grade. And my 2 boys, because we're newer, we don't have like the football and all that, but they did get lost. My sophomore, he's a sophomore again this year, he did get lost. He's supposed to be a junior. And they didn't catch it until it was too late, because then he last he couldn't do because he could do summer school because there's no transportation in summer school. In the early bus rides, my son got lost in transferring into a bigger school because he was not used to it. So there are kids who get lost in this. So when people say there isn't, there is. So they need to figure something out. Some kids can't handle big schools, and there should be an option for other kids who can't handle big schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Stacy Tangway. I have the unique experience of being in town for 20 years and sending kids to both Central, Concord, and Co-Brown. So I have some interesting experiences. Central, for me, was not a good option for my child. She was a foster child and had some issues, and it took them 4 days to realize she wasn't in class. So Central's not a good option, and thankfully not on the table. However, Concord was a great experience for her, but because we are a school that sends our kids there by contract, she was asked after the first year not to come back again. So, Co-Brown, but academically I thought it was a great school. They kept in contact with me. I had contact with the people that I needed to. So her year went as well as it could have gone, even though she wasn't asked back again. Co-Brown, when we chose Co-Brown, it actually, I didn't have a preference. My son had the option to either go to Concord, or he was fortunate enough to get one of the positions to choose a different school. He chose Co-Brown, and he, like I said, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a preference. Concord was a great experience for my foster child. But now that he's there and my second son is there, I can say that it has been a tremendous experience for both of them. And my younger son, who was kind of lost here, his 8th grade of DCS, is doing phenomenally. He was bumped up in his classwork after his freshman year. They kind of looked at him and said, "Why are you here?" But it was because he had been here for so long at DCS, because they have, kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. He just was kind of burnt out. I mean, he wanted a change of pace, and he wanted a change of faces, a change of scenery. And it was a great experience for him. He's doing great A's, involved with athletics. They just had JV states, and their team came in second. So it's been a great experience. So I advocate for choice. Whatever that would be. I think that having a smaller school and a bigger school is great. I think that the smaller school does lack some opportunities that you get with the bigger school, and the bigger school gives you that opportunity if you have a child who isn't interested in athletics and wants the art avenue or the VOTEC avenue. I think that gives them a great opportunity. So, not advocating for either, but maybe both.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Palacios. Sorry for the out-of-turn question earlier. I have 2 kids, Zoe and Sam, and then I have an older son, Andrew, who, I've been coming to these meetings off and on since 2007, hoping that, we'll have a choice. When I first moved here, we were told that, it was still an option to go to other schools in 2005. And by the time he got into high school, Concord was the school. We didn't have busing, I don't think, at that time. I think they maybe had a bus, you had to pay for it or whatever. Anyway, he didn't get the lottery. He wasn't able to go to Co-Brown. So for Andrew, we thought the best choice for him was, a small school. We ended up sending him to Dairyfield. We were fortunate that we could do that. And he did well there. He did well. He's 23 years old now. He went to a small college up in Vermont, St. Mike's. He is working as an accountant, studying for his CPA exams. And I think that, I'm glad that the kids are doing well in Concord, but I think we're here about choice. What's best for our kid, what school is going to be best for them. And just to be given an option would be, a good thing. Having known our kids, I don't want to have, oh, well, Concord worked out for me because we didn't have a choice, and I'm glad it worked out. I don't want to go through that option. I mean, I will send my kids to private school again if need be. But I would like for them to have an opportunity to go to Co-Brown, which is 7 minutes from my house, if I can. If everybody can be given the opportunity, I wish that would be taken into consideration.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Savannah Logan. I have a son in 8th grade, Marcus. I actually have been here for years. I went to school here and to Concord High. So I kind of got the experience of what it was like to go through it. Back then, we had Pembroke, we had Co-Brown, we had Concord, we had a numerous amount of schools to choose from. I didn't get into Concord at first. It was Raymond. I was put on the waiting list for Concord. Over the summer, I ended up getting into Concord. So it was kind of a transition thing. There was kind of a pain in the butt. I like how they have a lot to offer. They have a lot of academics, sports, stuff like that, but the sports don't really do you too well if you don't have transportation back and forth. Transportation is one of the biggest things I'm worried about for my oldest. As far as academics, I mean, that's great, Concord has a lot to offer, but again, if you need to stay after for something, you still struggle in there. I like choice to a degree. I think if it was 2 schools, it would be great, but when you start getting back down to, you know, the 6, 7, and even more, you're breaking the kids up. I mean, when I went, we didn't have the niches that they might have now. You had a handful that went to Concord, a handful that went to Pembroke, and it was just, you kind of broke off. So I think there should be choice, but not a large choice. And I think if we do stick with Concord, I think we need to kind of put more into the transportation, and maybe even those that struggle with the transition going from a small school to a big school. I don't know now if they have a person that they can meet with. If there's anybody that can kind of adjust them into the larger environment for those that struggle. So maybe that would be an option, if not. That's it.
Thanks. Anybody else?
It's like a long walk. My name is Marty Pegnam, and I have a daughter who's a junior at Concord, and then my son's in 8th grade. I was part of the infamous parent advisory board a couple years ago that recommended or hoped that the kids would get sent to Oyster River. And at the time, when I look back, I think it was really unfortunate how few Concord parents and kids came out to talk to that group at the time, because we didn't hear a lot of positive things until after we said, oh, we think it should be Oyster River. And then everyone came out very mad, like, oh my gosh, Concord's so great. So having my daughter in Concord now, like I said, she's a junior. If I could go back and change my vote, I definitely would have. I'm so happy they decided to stick with Concord. In terms of, my husband and I both work full-time. Neither one of us go by Concord every day. So I remember that I was like, I do not want her to go there. But you do find a network of people who help with transportation. I do agree with Tina and some of the other people. I think we could put some more effort into, instead of, no offense, rehashing this conversation like every couple of years, of making that relationship with Concord even better and doing more to transition the kids. A couple other things, I think if you bring back a choice, I think you should stop calling it the lottery and making it sound like 4 kids win and everyone else gets, you know, the loser school. I hated that. Now I'm asking another thing I was going to say. I can't remember what it was. I forgot what it was. But thank you. I think it's great that you're doing this. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Becky Carney. I have a child who's graduated from Co-Brown, one who's currently at Co-Brown, and one here at DCS. And I've had a great experience at Co-Brown. I love that I had the opportunity for them to go there, and I would just love for school choice to be an option for people, because Concord is not a great fit for everyone, and we have such a great community here, and we have the option that we could have choice. And I know, looking back at, you know, somebody said don't keep rehashing this, but that's the beauty of change and the options of our community, is that, you know, if we have a school board who's willing to listen to people, and there's a whole lot of passion and buzz out there, people talking about schools and what they think is best for their own children, and people get amazingly passionate about it. I know you saw some Facebook posts, but knowing that, you just have to know that if there's that much energy being put into this discussion, that there is a reason for, you know, you guys to look further into what is best for individual kids. And I know you guys have, through some of the other things that you've done, you really put an emphasis on what's best for kids. It shouldn't be what's best most convenient for parents, or, I mean, the family certainly plays into it, but what's best for individual kids. And one size doesn't fit all. And I think that's why you see so much passion here, is because, you know, some people have legitimate fears. that have been allayed, and I think people who, you know, you put your mind and you make the best out of whatever you have to offer. So people love Concord because they're making it great. And there's a lot of people who have gone to Concord who have had issues, and you know, we have a couple of very brave people who stood up here and said, I had a problem, but you're not going to hear the bad stuff a whole lot, I think. I think people don't want to stand up, and especially in a public forum, and say the bad stuff.
Right, if I could interrupt there, if anybody is watching this from home, or if anybody would like to write us and they've had a negative experience, we do want to hear that. We do want to engage with the community and hear all sides of what's going on. So I appreciate the people who could stand up and say it, but I also invite everybody to reach out to us, whatever your experience is.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, I think choice is great, and I think change is great, and the fact that there's so many people willing to even look into this, thank you. And I hope that there is some choice out there for when my youngest gets up there. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Rob Wolfgram, I have a first grader and a third grader here in Deerfield. Me and my wife both grew up. We went to Merrimack Valley, which also did the Technology Center at Concord. We both really enjoyed having a smaller school, which actually had 5 communities, more agricultural communities that went to it, but also liked being able to get to Concord to take the tech things. We also had a lot of friends, and actually I have a lot of nieces and nephews that both go to Merrimack Valley and Concord. Both very happy with Concord, with the programs that they have. So that's where we stand right now. I'm very happy with Concord that we're still able to go to Concord. One of the reasons why we did choose Deerfield is because, you know, we had a lot of knowledge of both schools and enjoyed Concord. So this was something that we were very happy with. If, you know, that is a choice, I'm still happy with that. I'd still like to have a choice when our kids grow up, because, I mean, obviously we're looking more than about 10 years from now, you know, by the time they go to school. It goes fast. So things can change, so I'd like to have the option open, keep that option open, and thank you for your help. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there a mechanism, so if a parent has misgivings how their child might fit in at Concord, is there a mechanism of setting up a visit with the parent and child or whatever to follow?
Concord?
Say,
Yeah, I would
a class schedule or something, you know, that.
Yeah, I would suggest reaching out to the guidance department here.
Okay.
And they can facilitate a meeting and a tour of Concord. I'm sure they'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
The kids do a full tour, a
Right.
full day over there anyways, as part of their 8th grade, you know, but if you wanted one, just you and your child, so you can have some
That's when
points
it's
to
already a
discuss.
done deal, right?
Yeah, pretty much, true, yeah, that's true.
We want to start early.
But, yeah, contact the guidance.
Anybody else?
My name is Emily Oxnard. I am a 2nd and 5th grader here. And I'm really just asking an information-seeking question, and maybe it's geared more towards Zach or to people who have gone through the application process. So historically, when we didn't have a school of record, did you have to apply?
So I came from a slightly different situation. I grew up in town, a couple miles up the road. I went to Catholic schools in Manchester for elementary school and for junior high school. And then at that point, I chose that I wanted to go to Central. My family comes from Central. It's where my father went, and my family that taught at Central. So we have historical ties to Central. So I didn't go through the same process that the students in town did. I did come from a very small school into Manchester Central, which is a fairly large school. But at the time, because of the situation I was coming from, that lottery process I didn't see that. If it occurred behind the scenes, I didn't see how it worked. But I became a Deerfield kid when I went to Central with the other half a dozen Deerfield kids that were there at that time.
Are you asking what the process is now?
Yeah, my question really is about the transparent, you know, when you apply to a private school, their application process is clear and laid out according to their own school, but what does an application process to a public school look like? How transparent is that? Can they say yes and no to whomever they please? Can they say no to special ed students because perhaps they don't want that statistic
This is a nice segue, if you don't mind me jumping in here. I did have some notes from the guidance department who have been here a long time, and they're great people. Greg Bovera and Heather, right? Sorry, I just lost it there. And they wrote up a couple of notes about what it was like before we had Concord as a school of record. Now, the demographics have changed, and probably you've heard from some of the folks who've spoken that there was this period where kids didn't get into high school, and they had to apply, and they were waitlisted. I think Savannah talked about being waitlisted and then switching schools. Early on, they had some notes that when Co-Brown was particularly full, they had to apply through an application process and had a disclosure of discipline issues and special needs, IEP and 504 plans, along with teacher and community recommendations. And they would inform the district how many spaces they had available, which ranged from 8 to 23. They often would have 15 to 25 students apply to Co-Brown, and they were selective about who they picked. If you don't have a school of record, it allows that school to be selective. They can do what they like. They don't have to take them. A school of record contractually has to take all of your students, regardless of what their situation or what their learning style or what their needs are.
I can speak a little bit about that process. My son, when he was applying to the high school, when he applied to Co-Brown, it was a regular application. He had to submit an essay, that kind of stuff. It was kind of basic. When he went to apply for the private schools, he had to take SSATs and do essays as well. So it was a bit of a process for the application. And then he ended up getting accepted into Co-Brown at that time too, but we would have to pay out of pocket if he could go. But there, I know that there was other people in his class that applied to Co-Brown and did not get it. And they ended up going to Concord too. So it is a whole application and an essay and community service, and you do that kind of stuff. So it wasn't too bad, but he did fill it out and it worked out okay.
If I may. So, sure. A lot of these difficulties, I think, can be overcome. And one of them is the number, right? The school of record wants a number because they have to plan. And I get that. And so, in fact, you can set up a policy where you ask families, can you declare when your student is in 7th or 8th grade, whatever that window would look like, what do you think your intentions are? It's non-binding. You can't force a kid to go to any school. A parent can pull them out and send them anywhere they want if they want to pay for it. But you could ask, what are your intentions at 7th or 8th grade? And that way you can give indicative numbers to your school of record. You only need one school of record. And if you have a flexibility, then it's on the onus of the family that wants a different solution to find the school that best fits their needs and to get their child into that school. So you can have sort of this one school of record that takes care of that bulk pipeline, and I would imagine that's probably what it would still be. You don't have to have multiple schools of record. You don't have to have multiple contracts here, there, and everywhere. You can still have one school of record, and it's up to the family to, if the family wants something different, then they have to do that. They have to make the application. They have to get the kid in. Really what it comes down to is having that tuition value follow the student to defray those costs. The other thing I didn't mention, to the best of my knowledge, you cannot, the Croydon bill does not allow you to send students to a religious school. So Trinity, Bishop Brady, Bishop Girton, schools like that would still be out of the mix legally to the best of my knowledge. But just because we had lotteries for multiple schools in the past doesn't mean that that's what the model would have to look like again today. There's a lot of interesting solutions that could be worked out.
Hi there.
Hi.
My name is Christina Baker. I have a second grader, and a preschooler, and an infant, so I'm pretty far out from this discussion, but I've been paying attention to it since we moved to town in 2013 when this whole thing was starting up, because I like to know everything, I guess. So one thing I want to mention is that I actually did work in Concord, so this is actually not a problem for me, but the transportation issue that is. And I remember very distinctly, because I used to work for the Chamber of Commerce in Concord, so we had a lot of people who would come in and out, where should I live? Where's a good place to live? Where should you buy a house? And of course I'm always like, Deerfield, that's fantastic, come live with us, But I also would have people who would be buying houses and they say, oh, that's okay, because Deerfield can go to Co-Brown. And I'd be like, I don't think that's accurate. There's a lot of people who consider looking in Deerfield, and either they have bad information, and they think, oh, you can choose where you can go, or they have, just no information whatsoever. So I guess one of the things that I personally would like to see is a little bit more of a focus on the school website with the correct information, because unless you really start doing some deep Googling, this stuff is not that easy to find. Even I tried to look up the high school contract a few months ago. I went on the SAU website, and they had the one from 2013 there. So I would love it if we could update the contract so that everyone, and we could post a link to that, and if any of you are active on any of the Facebook pages, if you could post a link there, because unless you really do some deep Googling, it's hard to find this stuff. So it would be nice if there was a tab maybe on the school website with all your high school, here's the contract, here's what it is, and maybe that could clear up some misconceptions and also might attract more people to our town and to buy here, which would be wonderful. So that's my first point. One other thing, because I've been sort of taking notes as we go, one other thing, it would be great if we could post that data report also onto the website where the audio was messed up, because I would love to see that if he has a PowerPoint or something.
It's there.
Is it there? Okay, great. Excellent. I'll try looking for that then. About the 90%, I guess I was a little bit confused. First quick question. Is it possible to have 2 schools of record, or you can only have 1?
You can have as many as you'd like.
Okay, because I know it seemed like some of the concerns from people who had gone through the previous processes with choosing and applications was, oh my gosh, we don't want to lose our school of record because we don't want to have to go back to that, which is a totally valid concern, and I would absolutely agree. So I just wanted to be clear that if we did add another choice, it would not erase our school of record.
No, so just to clarify, prior to Concord becoming our school of record, Deerfield had no school of record.
Okay.
That's what that situation,
right,
that chaotic
right.
situation.
We'll refer to that as the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, and I think the concern that I was hearing in the community and just seeing on social media was that if we opened it up to choice, somehow our school of record would evaporate, and then we'd go back to this Thunderdome style thing, and we don't want to do that. So, which again is a very valid concern. So I just wanted to be clear about that. And then I had a question about the 90%. I'm a little bit confused. So the school can choose, or I shouldn't say the school can choose, but the 10% represents the people who apply to have their kids go somewhere else are part of that?
There can be up to, and correct me if I'm wrong, there can be up to 10% that can apply for an exception to the school of record.
Okay, but say
I think that's a better way to express that.
But say I'm just a parent and I don't apply, or my kid gets turned down for whatever reason, and I decide to just pull my kid and put them somewhere else.
Right.
So first question is there a penalty if we don't send 90%? There's no penalty or anything like that?
There technically is.
You have to be really pushed consistently.
Yeah. Okay.
There's 1 or 2 under the, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would have to be like a dramatic under 90%.
Yeah, it's technically breaking the contract.
Okay. And so then I guess my next question to that is, are we tracking the data of how many parents are choosing on their own dime to put their kids in private school versus sending them to Concord, thereby pulling them out of that 90% number? Are we tracking that data anywhere?
Not right now.
Okay. Can we start tracking that data?
It gets hard. We could definitely try.
Yeah, it gets hard because you lose, since they're out of the system.
Right.
You lose track.
Yeah. Perhaps we could put that on a survey of some kind, if just, know. But I think it would be valuable to know how many parents are voluntarily putting their kids in private schools on their own dime versus sending them to Concord, because these are parents that would probably be at this meeting, So I just think that's valuable information to know, and then I think it's also valuable to know because we would want to identify trends. If every year we're seeing more and more kids go to private school, then that's something that we would want to address.
There are people who move out of town.
Right.
Yeah, there are quite a few, it's anecdotal, but there are people every year who move out of town.
Actually, it's interesting that you say that because last summer, I was a renter here in Deerfield. Last summer, we were shopping for a house here in Deerfield. We looked at a handful of houses in Deerfield, and I would say about half the houses we looked at had high school age kids, and they were moving out of town for that reason.
There's a definite migration at that age point. Again, it would be hard to quantify because they're no longer in Deerfield, they're no longer a Deerfield kid, they're not in our purview, they're now a Concord kid.
Right.
We might be able to keep track of them, but I mean, it gets very.
Well, it would be a voluntary reporting kind of thing, like you have to tell, which I get.
We don't see great responses on surveys.
Yeah. Okay, then, let's see. During some of the previous discussions building high schools with other towns, was it ever discussed about maybe not building a new high school, but going to a town like and this is just for an example, but like going to Northwood with Co-Brown and saying, if you don't have the space for all of us, could we build an addition to your school so you'd have the space for all of us? Has that come into play at all?
Yes.
And how did that go?
Not well. The last time the board got into these, there were some interesting dynamics in communication with Co-Brown. Co-Brown is a interesting school because it is a public-private school. So it operates as its own entity to a large degree. So they have a lot of leeway over what happens. So and autonomy. So Northwood tuitions its kids to Co-Brown. Stratford tuitions its kids to Co-Brown. It is the school of record, I believe, for them, but I don't understand all the mechanisms of Co-Brown, so I'm not going to get too far in there.
But that avenue has been explored
numerous times.
Some of the things just that I've heard tonight, and then also, again, I think a lot of us in the room were probably on that Facebook thread that saw lots of comments. I think, I personally believe that it's good that we revisit this issue every couple years. I think we should continue to revisit this issue. We should always be trying and striving to do the best for our students. I think as long as we don't have a Deerfield High School, we should be talking about this, and we should be talking about it consistently every so many years. I think that's a great thing, and I don't want to see that stop. I think as long as we don't have a high school in Deerfield, we are at the mercy of other local schools. And I don't think that that they don't want to work with us or anything like that. I just, we have to realize that we are always sort of we don't have a lot of leverage when we're going to a school and saying, hey, can you help us out and, take our kids? And so until we have our own high school, I think, we sort of have to accept that we may not always get everything that we want. I think it's clear that the old system didn't work with all the talk here, and if you talk to people who went through, and I shudder to think about all our class of Deerfield kids going to 16 schools. I can't even imagine how that came together. But I think we need a fresh new system. I think we need some new thinking. I think I think there's a lot of young families in Deerfield that are very engaged, that would like to have a good voice in this. I think they come at it with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh set of thinking, and that are maybe not bogged down so much by, well, this is how it's always been done, or you can't do that because X or Y or whatever. I think the discussion should continue to happen. I think as shown by our demographics, like you said, we're the only school in the area, the immediate area, that's growing So I think we should just harness that energy, and if this is an option, if this isn't something that we want to explore further, which I think this meeting shows that we do, I think that we should do it, and we should try to harness that energy of the younger families that are in this town, and put them to work, because that's, they're interested in it, so.
Now, I will say that personally, and I think the board as a whole does want to continue to pay attention to what's going on in high school. It is the single biggest check that this community writes every year, is to whatever high school our kids go to. So it is something that we definitely pay attention to. But thank you for your comments.
I would also encourage not only families, but people that don't have kids, they still pay taxes.
They're vested in the process.
They're still vested in it. We need their input, like Mr. Purple was mentioning earlier. We do need their input, and they're actually a segment that we don't hear from a lot until the town meeting. So that's when it's really important.
So, yeah.
I have a quick question. I don't know much about Epping, but I know that they have their primary school and then their high school is kind of added on. Is that something we've discussed, adding on to here as far as like a separate area for a high school and possibly having, Fremont or whoever wants to eventually come here, or is it just not an option?
In addition to our demographic study, we are doing an engineering study, and we're weighing both of those things out in terms of this building is currently at capacity. And what we do going forward depends a lot on what the demographics look like. In terms of inviting other communities to come to a school here, like if we established a school here, there are a lot of communities that are doing that currently. It's very much kind of a buyer's market. The demographics are such that a lot of schools are shrinking and they are looking for students. Anybody else?
Do we want to read some questions?
I don't know.
I think Brian, were you collecting questions?
We can read them later.
Okay, we'll read them.
I just had two comments.
Sure.
One is, we've heard a lot of people talk about choice, and I'm not anti-choice. The people who seem to be wishing for choice are expressing an urge for a smaller school, and I just wanted to say out loud that there are people in the community who are interested in the larger school. So again, that doesn't negate the choice piece, but I did want to just voice some of us really are looking forward to a very diverse school and what that brings for our kids' properties.
I think most of us here, I think what the choice piece has started because we didn't think of it as a small school. I think we're trying to look at it what's best for the kids, and the choice given to the parents. I think we definitely would keep that in mind.
Yeah, I just wanted to say out loud that some people prefer large, and we heard a lot of them prefer small. And the other thing was, say really explicitly, what I heard about not having school choice and Emily's point about that means that if you're not a school, or not school choice, school of record, if you're not a school of record, you get to say no to whomever you want. So one of the things that is incredibly important to me is that we do have a school of record, and that nobody in that position not having an option. That may play into the contract.
I think we can all agree that there is no chance that we are not going to have a school of record.
Right. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm just curious if you can talk to how VLAX plays into this, because I know 10 years ago, when the whole system was different, VLAX was not online, was not an option. So how does that factor into our town?
I'm going to make your husband answer this.
She doesn't want his answer. Do you mean as an option, or do you mean as a school of record?
Right.
We have students now
Can
in
it
the
be a
district.
school of record? I'm just curious.
I can't answer that question.
I'm sorry, what? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, can we define what VLAX is first?
So VLAX is virtual learning academy.
Right, it's an online high school.
Charter school.
I can talk to that a little bit.
Okay, sure.
So I can talk to that a little bit. My daughter we were looking for some additional work in maths. We had signed up and we had a good experience with VLAX and a very bad one. And so We made it clear she was engaged as a full-time student. This was to supplement it. First program went very well. We did it last year. She stopped at one point in time, partway through the scheduled time. So they sit there and they give you a schedule in terms of when you should be done. Near January, she was studying for SSATs. She took a 2-week break from it. Had no problems with that instructor. We finished it, the class got finished early. It was a good experience. Signed up for an additional one in spring. Made clear this was to supplement it. You got a nasty gram, 1 week in, you're not making satisfactory progress. We don't need this.
Right.
So the verdict's still out. I mean, if it was flexible, when you make it clear to them, I can understand they need to be that strict if I am homeschooling my child and this is what's fulfilling it. But VLAX is really not working as a means of supplementing if that's the approach they're going to take.
But to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe that VLAX can be a school of record.
You have a number of people homeschooling. I think they're using that to meet their requirements for the math curriculum they're offering. I mean, I believe
you can get a degree through it.
Yeah. You can get a
Can you get a VLAX diploma?
Yes.
Can you?
You can.
Okay.
But as far as signing up a town,
Yeah, I don't think it could be.
a town class, I don't.
Right. Anything else?
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with VLAX.
Right.
But one of the advantages of the school of record is to take care of special ed needs and requirements. And I would be very surprised if an online school or class would meet the special ed requirements, because there's a lot of one-on-one, two-on-one type stuff, and I'm not sure how an online, how that would work. My guess is that somebody would balk at that being a school of record.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you. All right. Mr. Dunham?
Hello, Dave Dunham. I have a child in first grade and pre-kindergarten. I overheard you say that surveys haven't gone well in the past. It seems like what's water under the bridge now for the next 6 years. So would it be possible, or would it make sense to have a complete survey from second grade down through pre-K, giving viable options for high schools to the parents to see what their feelings kind of are, to get some real feedback? I'm not sure if this is just a small sample of what's going on. Maybe people love Concord and we're wasting our time, I don't know. But is there a more concrete way to kind of get data to see what's going on?
Sure, I mean, we can definitely reach out again, and when I was saying that it hadn't gone well, usually we're getting about a 10% response rate, 10 to 15%. So it's a small sample, but it's a sample. Asking for input from the lower levels, and people's minds do change. So they, but I do think it's definitely something that we consider. Sure.
And then just a second comment is, and I'm kind of maybe speaking an attorney here, but I think we have to have a school record, because transportation does become an issue. We have to provide busing. So even if we do provide choices, a lot of families can't send their kids to the other choices because they can't provide transportation to school X, Y, or Z. So I think we probably should focus on a school of record, and should be Concord. Hopefully not in my position, but maybe that's the right choice for the community as a whole. So I would urge you to have options, but also look at the school of record and focus on that more than maybe just saying you can go wherever you want, because it's not going to work for a lot of folks.
Right. Anyone else? Anybody else want to yell at us about something? All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Oh, right before you go. The next community forum, 11/8 competency night, envisioning a DCS graduate, right?
Yeah.
No, not
Competency not
envisioning,
based on, if you have questions about competencies, anything about,
Hold on.
oh, sorry.
it's not envisioning a DCS graduate. It's competency-based education with a focus on K through 5.
Focusing on K through 5 and how we're doing competency-based education here
Yep.
at DCS.
Yeah.
Great.
You jumped ahead.
Yeah, sorry. November 8th.
All right.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you very much.
What are we doing